Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. So before we start this session, all the audiences, I request you to visit our booths. We have some wonderful companies who are looking forward to talk to all the audiences today. So please make sure that you visit our booths and have those discussions. Um, yeah, before I introduce the panel, probably I could just go about how we talked about in our earlier session about building the roadmap for the talent pool in the alternative protein ecosystem. By the way, I'm Akshay Bhatt, Science and Technology Specialist with GFI India, and my focus is basically bridging academia as well as industry, building the talent pool in academia as well as for open access research as well as bridging the kind of research talent which we have in the academia and into industry. So previously, I've talked about the need for a coordinated national plan to develop a talent pool for smart protein, being very, very critical. And we just have seen an ambitious vision for what's possible in the smart protein sector in this country. This sector is already scaling up overseas, and in fact, is as expected, Indian talent is definitely going to be at the center of this growing sector. And many founders and industry leaders in this field come from India, which of course mirrors other industries too. The Indian biotechnology industry is currently valued at 64 billion. Sorry, was valued at 64 billion in 2019, and was among the top 12 destinations for biotechnology in the world, and is targeted to reach 150 billion by 2024-25. The government of India's Department of Biotechnology, like I said before, aims to establish India as a world-class biomanufacturing hub and has created technology development as well as translation networks across India through establishment of bioclusters, incubations, technology transfer centers, etc. The Indian biotechnology industries offer specific value to international alternative protein ecosystem. And today we have an excellent panel with leaders from different areas of biotech ecosystem, such as academic bioincubation, startups, large-scale suppliers, and industry builders. So I'll be quickly introducing all our panelists today. Firstly, GS Krishnan. GS Krishnan is the current president of Able India. He is an experienced thought leader in industry biotechnology and is passionate about sustainable solutions for climate changes. And with over 35 plus years of vast experience in strategy and management and multinational conglomerates, Krishnan now engages with biotech companies and startups as an advisor and a mentor. So, welcome, Krishnan, to this session. Moving forward, we have Rajesh Krishnamurthy, who is the Executive Director and Chief Business Officer at Laurus Bio, which is formerly Richcore Life Sciences. He heads the global business development, strategic partnerships, and marketing to enable the fast-growing novel cell and fermentation-based protein industry. He has spent over 23 years of his professional career building businesses in US and India. A warm welcome to you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Akshay.
Next, we have Vinod Kumar, who is the co-founder and CEO of String Bio. Vinod, from managing the supply chain from his family's FMCG firm to leading global multi-billion dollar teams in telecom and data industries, his corporate experience is vast. So with 22 plus years in product development, engineering, manufacturing, and operations, Vinod brings a strong commitment for excellence as well as insights on taking products to market. A warm welcome to you, Vinod.
Thanks, Akshay.
We also have Gabriela Mayer. Gabriela is the chairperson at Bioengineering AG, and she has been managing Bioengineering AG since 2009. Bioengineering AG develops and produces fermentation systems for the pharmaceutical industry. Warm welcome to you as well, Gabriela. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Akshay.
And we have Dr. Taslim Arif Syed, who is the CEO and director of CCamp Bangalore. In an individual capacity, he has consulted for many biotech firms in the US and is an adjunct faculty at the IIT Madras and Amrita Institute School of Biotechnology. He's very actively promoting innovation in life sciences, healthcare, by supporting the translation of discoveries to application and technology development. Welcome, Taslim.
Thank you, Akshay.
So quickly moving into the first round of questions about what each of you do. So firstly, Krishnan, building an enabling ecosystem and industry voice for deep technology and bio companies in India is definitely long-term and painstaking work, as you know. Could you tell us about Able's activities and where India is in this, where India is in our journey of building a thriving biotech sector?
Thank you very much, Akshay, and thanks to GFI for organizing this and giving us an opportunity. Well, coming to Able, it was founded way back in 2003. Able has been playing a catalytic role in the development of the industry, and we made the first draft. That paper led to the formation of BioRack. BioRack has funded 500 biotech startups over the years. Able keeps track of all these startups, and now we have over 5,000 biotech startups in the country. Startups need good infrastructure, and now there are over 60 biotech incubators across the country. Able started measuring the impact of biotechnology on the country's economy, and we are happy that the term bioeconomy is widely accepted. According to the latest Indian bioeconomy report, Able brought out for DBT BioRact, our bioeconomy has crossed $70 billion mark. We will end the calendar year 2021 with at least a $2080 billion mark bioeconomy, with the COVID economy alone contributing more than $10 billion. Thanks to the efforts again from our side, the government is now updating the biosimilar guidelines as our companies are starting bringing out more essential life-saving medicines. The government is revising the very old Drugs and Cosmetic Act to give impetus to the tremendous growth being witnessed in the diagnostic segment using latest advances. CRISPR-based gene editing is the future, and Able is pushing for appropriate regulation. Some of the provisions of the Biodiversity Act comes in the way of garnering more investment in many areas of biotechnology. We are working closely with the government to make suitable amendments to make it more industry friendly. There are more other initiatives which Able has been doing for the past so many years. We look forward to see how we can support even this growing segment which we are talking today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan. Thank you for giving that specific inputs on what and how Able is doing to make biotech industry thrive in the Indian ecosystem. So moving quickly to Dr. Tasleem. So Tasleem CCamp is more than just a life science incubator, working with entrepreneurs and startups and also developing cutting edge deep science innovations. So what do you think makes CCamp uniquely positioned in the ecosystem, and how do you help new sectors like the smart coding sector, for example, thrive? Dr.
I was,
Tasleem,
of
you're on mute. Yeah,
course, I was on mute. So thank you so much, Mr. Akshay. I think good to be here and good to see, first of all, such an exciting, event being put together, and we are discussing this. This is definitely a very an area that is fairly right here, but also futuristic in, as we know. Uh, just to say a thing, like I think as CCamp, we have been supporting deep science innovations for a while. It dates back now from 2012, 13 that we have been identifying exciting science-based ideas and supporting them and helping them to go to the next level, handholding them, providing the environment, giving the expert advice, bringing the network of experts, and many more VCs and so on. So, idea is to give be an ecosystem by itself. While one uses the word incubation, as you said, it is an ecosystem. How can somebody come to an ecosystem and get supported across, from all means? And that we have done it within the life science. So our at CCamp, it has been a niche which has been life science, biosciences that we have done over years. The good thing that has happened is that we have kept our focus very, very keen. We would do something in deep science completely. That has been a clear way that we want to do. And, fortunately, I think the fruits have come now. We have tremendous outcomes which have come from there. Many of them have really become a national rock stars in terms of innovation. If I may say so, String Bio, which we have supported at the idea level, is right here. Vinod and Errol, who have built phenomenal startup from a very futuristic technology base and something that they would take a long way further. I'm sure about. is an example of that. And we are very proud that we have been a part of the journey from day one, more or less. At the same time, we have many others, and I will not take much time. Like yesterday, our own startup, Bugworks, they have a billboard now at Times Square. Now, who has thought that Indian biotech startup would have a billboard at Times Square announcing their phase 1 clinical trial for an antibiotic, a kind of antibiotic which hasn't been discovered since 1960s, before most of us were born. So this is what the deep science can do. It absolutely game-changing, absolutely breakthrough. And if CCAMP is associated with this breakthrough and game-changing innovations, what better than areas which are emerging as futuristic areas? And the future of the future protein capability, the synthetic biology component, and how we are going to use this as a future for addressing many SDGs, as we call them, Sustainable Development Goals. The science has the capability to do that, and CCAMP is absolutely there to identify new ideas, support them in any way that is possible, and make a mark of Indian innovation, not at the national scale, but the global scale. So we are very much there and very keen, and anyone who has an interest of building innovations based on strong sciences in this area will be very happy to support that. I hope I answered part of your question, and I'm happy to add on later on. Thank you, Akshay.
Thank you, Tasleem. I think obviously CCAMP's achievements have been stellar in terms of incubation and taking startups from, let's say, early stage to late stage. And like you talked about Bugworks, and that's an incredible achievement for Indian companies, reinforcing confidence as well as inspiring startup innovators in India. Moving to Gabriela. Gabriela, could you tell us about bioengineering? Bioengineering AG story, and also followed by how you have worked with the Indian industry before, and what excites you about such a new industry like alternative protein or smart protein?
Thank you very much, Akshay, and thank you all for making this happen, because for me, this is the nucleus where everything can grow if people join together and make it happen. Bioengineering started to work with India in 1984, and we always trusted and believed in the strengths of India, and especially what just was mentioned, the scientific capabilities. We started to work with the university in Delhi, in Chennai. We worked closely with them together, and it was tremendous to see how it grows from the university into huge biotech companies who are now very in a top position of the world. So our story is building partnerships, because if you have to grow, you need partners, and you need to specialize your processes together with the guys who can help you. And it's not only one company, there are several companies who made it happen. And so I think the key word here is work closely together and trust each other on each strengths everybody has. That's I think the key point I want to mention at this stage, but we will add on later much more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriela. So moving quickly to Rajesh. Rajesh, you have been working on animal origin-free recombinant products since 2012. So if you could tell us a little more about Laurus Bio and what's happening in the broader, let's say, explosion of synthetic biology and how it's actually affecting industries. Rajesh, you're on mute. Yeah, Rajesh, you're on mute. Yeah, so probably we could move to Vinod. So Vinod, you're also in this very interesting precision fermentation space with String Bio, turning methane into protein, and how did this all come about? And how far along are you on your journey?
Yeah, thanks, Akshay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you so much for having us on this forum. And a big shout out for GFI and everything you guys are doing, over the last couple of years to spearhead this revolution, if you may, in the industry. So kudos to you guys. So to answer your question specifically, so we started String about 8 years ago, like every entrepreneur with an innate desire to have an impact and to make a difference, right? Very earlier on, when we were sitting down and whiteboarding, what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it, one of the biggest thing that was on our radar was climate change, right? Of course, climate change, folks have been talking about this for the last several years. In the recent past, it's become more than a buzzword, and it's becoming very real with a lot of companies and countries now, with COP26 going on about getting to net neutrality either by 2030, 2050, 2070, depending on the size of the organizational company. But at String, we envisioned what was very important for the ecosystem, and when we started working on building a company that can leverage waste gases, specifically methane gas from natural gas and biogas, and see how we could take something that the society doesn't need, and how do we convert that into something that the society does need, right? So we started with that, lots and ups and downs. In fact, we started the company in the US and quickly moved base to India to build the company in the region that most requires such solutions, and where even from a business perspective, India and rest of APAC is poised for growth significantly over the next couple of decades. So the idea was to actually build the technology indigenously from scratch here in India. So it's been close to 8 years of hard work, a lot of innovation. We have developed about 5 products that are commercially ready. When I say commercially ready, we have taken it all the way from POC through market validation. We are in the process of setting up a couple of large-scale plants for our products, and for a couple of actually in the market today, which is a significant achievement from bringing it from an idea to revenue for these products. We have a lot more products in the pipeline, so looking to build both our innovation engine and cycle a lot more, and not just be a tech company, but also be a total solutions provider company, where we could also leverage the indigenously built technology to manufacture these products and make sure that we can feel the impact and make the impact real in society. So that's what we have done, where we are, and still a long way to go.
Yeah, thank you, Vinod. Thank you for giving that. The amount of effort you have put in terms of getting from where you started and where you are today, and obviously bringing down costs and developing robust, scalable bioprocesses remain high priorities, basically to advance a more sustainable future. So we have an adjacent biotech industry to leverage, and also there are opportunities for collaboration and strategic partnerships between existing life science and food companies and producers of smart protein foods. So Gabriela, you have seen the development of Indian biopharma industry from very close by, so up close. So what was that journey like, and what are the key success parameters for the industry's rapid rise, and how might they help us with building the smart protein sector in India? Gabriela, you're on mute.
This was a very interesting and exciting journey. And what I always admired is that India biotech industry focused from the first moment for international. And they focused very deeply in quality. So this combination make them so successful. I mean, you have one of the you have the largest vaccine player in the world. And this is only possible if you focus on quality and always have the international market in your mind. If you go for local, that's also good, but then maybe you have the higher restriction to achieve then the goals the Eurobiotech industry achieved in the last years. And this combination together with the innovative and what I always think is outstanding in India is the know-how, how you work with those equipment. You know, the science is one very important part, but the production is the other very important part, because you can have in your business plan a beautiful company. If you have not the operators, they can handle it in the right quality, then you have a problem. And that's what I always saw in India. It's outstanding. And it's really also a picture for other countries to focus on this commitment to the work and this commitment to the quality in the work for this industry. So I think India has that wonderful platform, and that I think we should take over now to the new protein world, because it's exactly the same. You are now in the start phase, sort of, and if you focus from the first moment for the international market, not as a supplier from some ingredients, no, as a total supplier for total solution, and focus on the quality what is needed for it, then I think it will be a wonderful journey.
Yeah, thanks, Gabriela. Absolutely agree with you. Krishnan, similar question. What lessons can this new smart protein industry learn from biotech in India? I mean, focusing on the entire high value added products for the start instead of only the components. Krishnan, you're on mute.
Yeah, this particular segment I've been associated now for 2 years, and it's really gaining momentum in a big way. Well, if you have to compare with the typical biotech industry and the challenges, from my experience, the Indian biotech sector has gained momentum very, very slowly. In fact, if you just look at the industrial biotech sector where I come from, I remember that way back in the early 90s, we had to really get into so many challenges from regulation to import of products, and there was not much of local manufacturing capabilities in the past. Today, the scenario is different. Today, we have enzyme manufacturers here in India. No doubt, of course, the capacities are always a challenge. This segment is also going to face a similar challenges from way of the capacity for production is concerned. While the capabilities are there, we are short of capacities today. And the way this particular segment is going globally and the way we are going to play a critical role, India is definitely going to be in the forefront. But then, should we capitalize on this? Should we look at how do we make sure that the industry is supported? There are examples. Laurus Biotech is definitely doing very well and they need more support. And how can we make sure that this segment is supported from a regulatory point of view, from various other challenges where the industry is facing? That is what I would like to say, because we have experience in the industrial biotech segment, for example, from even the food safety standards regulatory approvals. I should share with you all that we have an experience where we sold a food product. It was about 40 or 50 food products, which we were selling for more than 2 to 3 decades in India. All of a sudden, there was a regulation that all the GM products have to go through an approval process. While the globe definitely looked at these areas long back, India started. It's a very good move, no doubt about it. But then we were definitely left hanging to check whether we will be able to continue to sell these products. Thank God the FSSAI came out with at least a procedure to go through the approval process and ensured that today we are able to continue the business. But what I'm saying is this is where this segment needs to understand very clearly the regulatory challenges from an India point of view, while no doubt from a global perspective, things are definitely looking good. So those are some of the things I would probably raise and say that we should step up. One is making sure that we are able to capitalize on the opportunity which India will have from an innovation and also from a manufacturing capabilities. And then, of course, we need to watch out for local markets from a regulatory point of view. That's what would be my message.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna, and thank you for bringing in Loris Bio again. I think Rajesh had some technical issues at his end, but he's back. So, Rajesh, I mean, you also have like probably more than a decade experience in the biotech sector. So, obviously, you know what question I asked before. So, if you could speak towards both of these, it'd be good. No. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Probably we can move forward.
Akshay, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, moving into talent access, let's say. So we know probably my questions to you, the next question. So we know that your company is currently in the expansion phase. So could you throw some light on what are some of the key challenges you're facing in finding the right talent and your opinion on how we can actually bridge uh, the deep tech talent deficit which exists in the broader ecosystem? You could speak specifically for Loris Bio as well as the broader ecosystem as well.
Sure, absolutely. I think this is obviously one of the biggest issues any company or ecosystem faces, right? It's not I have spent a lot of my career or time in the past in other industries, in other high tech industries, telecom, data networking, and it's not unique to the sector we are in. It's not unique to biotech. It's not unique to companies working on smart protein. I think this exists across the board, right? So the way we look at it at String is it's a near term and a long term strategy, right? What I mean by that is when you look at what it takes to scale a company and the kind of resources that you need to scale the company, right? So you, and one end you have your folks with deep expertise, and then the other end you'll need a lot of folks who understand the system, understand the ecosystem, but to close the loop of manufacturing you need those kind of resources there as well. So what we have done is, very frankly, we have not had a lot of issues finding deep talent. That's not to say that we've not had those issues, but luckily, through the kind of work that we are doing, we've been blessed enough to have folks who are motivated and passionate in terms of what we are all trying to accomplish, right? So that way we have not had a lot of issues, but as we are scaling today and trying to add more and more resources to the table, we are clearly seeing that issue, right? And as I said earlier, it's not a biotech or a smart protein issue. If you see, we have lessons learned in history over the last couple of decades across multiple industries in terms of what and how we need to bridge it. And I can speak for String in what I see we will be doing and what we are seeing other folks do to bridge this gap is, one is intrinsically, and you'll see this with larger corporations today like Biocon and the others, where they have set up their own feeding systems into their company, right? So they have their own training centers, folks who come in from universities, they train them specifically for the kind of roles that they need. So that needs to happen more and more, whether it's through government sector support, private sector, enabled organizations and establishments. That needs to happen. But for us, what we believe is the best way to find deep tech talent or to get our work done is through partnerships, right? We talk about the world as being flat. We have seen this successfully happen in the IT industry over the last 15 years, right? Starting 2000, India didn't have an IT ecosystem, and today we are the largest in that space. And there is, that journey for that industry is there's a lot of lessons learned that the biotech sector can take from that industry, right? So for us, what we're doing is we're doing this through partnerships, right? We're building more and more partnerships in terms of innovation, in terms of even getting our products to market and making that happen. So to summarize, it is an issue, and I think intrinsically we will need to solve this problem. It's not going to happen overnight, right? It's not like in 2 years or a year we're going to have all this great talent in the ecosystem and all the companies out there will be able to access this talent. I think that's going to take a long time, and that's probably more of an endemic issue that will continue. But I think through partnerships, both nationally and globally, I think this is one of the best ways for all of us to kind of bridge that gap and take that forward. Of course, now this is completely different when you look at it from a manufacturing perspective. What I'm talking about is largely from an R&D product development side of it, but for manufacturing, it's a completely different aspect of it, and I can add more color to that towards the other questions that are coming up. I can add a little bit more color on that. But this partnerships is largely more from a product dev and innovation side of it.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Vinod. Obviously, I mean, partnerships is really important in order to take technologies forward, both locally as well as globally. But you were talking towards, let's say, for example, manufacturing, large scale. And my next question is to Taslim, basically. So, Taslim, you are a leader at CCamp and the broader NCBS ecosystem. So, obviously, like what Vinod said, partnerships is one way to go. But could you comment on how existing expertise, let's say, in areas such as microbiology, biochemistry, stem cell biology, and it's a long list, can be translated for applications in smart protein sector, because smart protein sector basically relies on expertise from multiple areas, particularly in stimulating more entrepreneurship?
No, thanks, Akshay. I think I fully agree with what Vinod said. I think I echo some of the points raised by Krishnan. I think he comes from a very broad perspective on industry. So I think very, very important points. To answer your question, I would say that I think it's absolutely crucial for us to actually attract talent in terms of the scientific capabilities from academia, from industry, regardless. And I think possibly stop looking at talent largely from either as an industrial researcher or an academic researcher. And to be honest, researchers are across. They are doing phenomenal job across. Either they are in this side of the early stage or a late stage application. I think we have to somewhere what we can do is that it is absolutely available. And I think just like this, I think we have to bring all scientists together, working in the academia and industry, and talk about it. Just scientists, don't call them where their affiliation is, but let's talk science. Let's hear you're talking about protein biology or protein science, and you're talking about synthetic biology. Can we have more chats on that? But I would say that we have, conventionally, we have phenomenal strength in biochemistry. We have phenomenal strength in microbiology, and I think we are building for the areas that we are looking at. I think where there are many industries like Laurus, like String Bio, and many small and established companies have strength. And then we have institutes who have been constantly giving the research training to the young talent. And I think that convergence and if we can attract scientists to actually have attract to the larger cause, that what we are trying to do together, and how their contribution can make that happen is a very important thing. And I think having such good scientific industries now around ecosystems like where we are in Bangalore Life Science Cluster and all, actually makes a huge difference. The more we are together, the more we coexist, I think we'll be able to have a nice dynamic movement of talent from one place to another. And I think there is a lot of talent. I think we'll have to just harness it and build it together.
Akshay, can I add something? I know I'm not part of this question, probably.
Definitely, Krishna, please.
Yeah. No, specifically from a talent perspective, and we were just concentrating now on the R&D part of it. What we did uniquely when I was heading Novozymes was we realized that there were a lot of students coming out of the biotech colleges, and most of them didn't even know. I'm talking about almost more than a decade before, where they all went to call centers. They basically didn't have a job for them. And then what happened is most of the mushrooming colleges closed down, and then only a very few sustained. Like if you look at it from what it was about 10, 15 years ago to today, That is the scenario. This is where some of the colleges invited us and said that what can we do to make sure these children are motivated that they have to study further in the segment. And we came out with a very unique idea of what we call the Voice for BT, Voice for Biotechnology, which is a public speaking contest. The final year students participated. We gave them topic on specifically biotechnology, and what motivated them was they all came out with very, very unique ideas and everything. And what we made sure that they are motivated further is we gave them internship. For example, Novozymes, the first few winners from each region, they had 6 months internship. Believe me, those guys who did internship, they have all been successfully placed today. What we found out was the challenge was industry readiness. Today, Biocon Academy is there. We need to go beyond that, and this is where I think your group actually have to look at how with the able collaborate together and support the industry segment to make sure that we have industry ready college students coming out of final year post graduation, or maybe people want to do PhD, whatever it is. We need to have them really secured with, for example, in C Camp or BBI or wherever it is. That motivation is required, and today that is what is lacking. Otherwise, there is no dearth for talent, according to me.
Thank you, Krishna. I mean, that basically rings a bell with me as well. So I think during my college days, I think 90% of my classmates actually moved into some of the sectors which you just mentioned, and I think I was just that part of 5 or 10% who went on to do a PhD. But point well taken on creating the right ecosystem for talent building as well. Okay, so moving into infrastructure, Rajesh, I think your audio is clear now, right? So we'll be able to hear you now.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Finally.
Yeah, finally. Yeah, finally. So Rajesh,
Awesome.
obviously you can talk about what Laurus Bio has been up to so far in the past
Yeah,
10, 11
thank you.
years.
Thank you, Akshay, and thanks, GFI. We are very proud to be associated with you guys. One of the phenomenal work that you guys are doing here in India, and also globally, working with your partners across the world. But so, Laurus Bio, we are a synthetic bio company from last almost 15 years. When we started, we looked at the biopharma market, similar to what is happening now in the food and the biomaterials market, where they're trying to replace animal-derived products. We entered to the biopharma space, interestingly, to replace animal-derived products there for your vaccine manufacturing, insulin, all the cancer drugs, etc., etc. So we have currently almost 12 to 15 products in the market to help these biopharma companies move away from animal-derived products. So at that time, we were not calling as a novel protein in the pharma sector. But over the years, what happened was over the last 15 years, we have become basically precision fermentation experts with our skills and capabilities and years of experience, taking something from animal derived products and kind of making it into microorganisms. So over the last 2 to 3 years, we realized that the enormous experience and expertise we have developed, we can package that into a service offering. And what we call as a CDMO service that we started about 2-3 years ago. And currently we are working with pretty much all the major novel protein companies that you hear today in the world who are trying to scale up their products and bringing into the market. So that's one thing we do. We also work with the culture meat companies because the products that we sell for biopharma are applicable to growing cells in the meat industry, for example. So what we realized is the same products that we sell into the biopharma industry, we have to reduce our cost almost 1,000 times or even more to bring those products into the market to help these culture meat companies today to bring their products into the market quickly. So that's what we do. So we are associated with the alternative protein industry in multiple ways, both at the precision fermentation market and also in the culture meat industry.
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh. So obviously, So in terms of infrastructure, if you want to take something to, let's say,
Yeah.
millions of people.
Right. So the one of the things that we are building infrastructure as we speak. We have 2 plants across near Bangalore, and looking at the infrastructure requirement. If you look at the precision fermentation space specifically, it is capital intensive, very high capital intensive. And I was doing some back of the envelope calculation before this meeting today. If you just to give you a context. We are building our 3rd facility, which is about 2 million liter facility that we are planning to do. And if you look at the protein consumption today globally, don't quote me on this because I've done some mathematics. Even if you want to replace 20% of the animal protein required today, and then 20% of the 20% coming from the fermentation, precision fermentation, so almost 4%, you need almost 2,000 of those facilities that we are planning to build, and a capital expenditure almost $500 billion. So it's we are competing against the cows and the chickens of the world. We are engineering our microorganisms to be able to compete with the animal cells eventually. So the infrastructure will be a key. And I always say this. India, we have been fortunate enough to produce all the food we need and being exporting this food today. And we should capitalize this great revolution that is happening with our expertise, capabilities in biotech. And while biotech is disrupting this food industry, we should be able to garner this opportunity as quickly as possible. But it will require a lot of infrastructure, especially in the precision fermentation space.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Rajesh. If I heard you right, you said 2 million liters, right?
Yeah. So we currently have 2 facilities, one with a 200,000 liter facility that we inaugurated 6 months ago. And then we are building the 10 times bigger, that's 2 million liter facility as we speak in the next 18 to 24 months. And I just wanted to give you that as a context, that if we build that, we need probably 2,000 of that all over the world to replace even the 4% of the animal protein today.
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh. That was my follow-up question as to where does this? Obviously, that's going to be a great big achievement in terms of India, but how does it stand globally, and how does it rank globally in terms of global manufacturing facilities per se?
Sorry, Akshay, I didn't get your question.
Yeah, my question was your 2 million liter manufacturing facility, when compared to the existing manufacturing facilities which exist across the world, where does it actually rank? Is it very high, or what's your
I think there's a lot of confusion between fermentation is a very old technology. We are fermenting from hundreds of years. And then there are a lot of fermentation facilities available today, especially when it came up for bioethanol facilities that came up. A lot of steel came up across the US, Europe. But what we are looking here is the precision fermentation. So there's a difference between a generic fermentation versus a precision fermentation, where you engineer these bacteria and control all these environment very precisely to be able to produce the product of interest. And today we don't have the numbers, but 2 million liter facility will be one of the largest dedicated facility for novel proteins in the world. Even our 200,000 liter is one of the first facility dedicated to alternative protein in the world. So yeah, it's if you look at the broad context of what we need in the next 10, 15 years, it's a tiny bit. But if you look at what we have today, it's a major number to add.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Rajesh. And hopefully, once you are done, I personally like to come and visit your facility.
Absolutely, welcome.
But moving on to Vinod. So Vinod, as you transition from a pilot scale facility to manufacturing scale, could you if you could reflect further on the industry's need for infrastructure at all levels, not just large scale, let's say probably at bench scale or pilot scale. So if you can talk a little bit towards that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll kind of echo a lot of what Rajesh said, right? Because I think that's, and I'm very gung-ho about infrastructure and the capabilities that need to exist to make this industry what it can to its potential, right? And I think some of us have seen these numbers in different reports. The alternate protein industry, especially in the human nutrition space, is, the growth projections are, I think, about 95 or 97 million tons in the next 15 years, right? And right now we don't have any anywhere in the world, right? So that's 97 million tons. That's a lot of manufacturing capabilities that is required, and that's a lot of innovation that needs to happen, right? And to echo to what Rajesh said, you need 2,000 and more of those 2 million liter facilities, right? And I'll speak to it in the context of India, because I think we have we as in the broader ecosystem in India, we have an awesome opportunity here for being in the center of this revolution, right? If you look at world over, there's only few places you could mass manufacture this amount of products, if you may, right? Eventually these are going to get commoditized. To manufacture these in this kind of volumes, we have a tremendous opportunity, and today it is literally at a very nascent level, right? And to talk about it from a commoditized perspective, the way we look at it is, if you look at our plate today, right, except proteins, everything else is really cheap on a kg level, right? And if you look at the cheapest source of protein that you can use, I'm talking about protein at a molecule level, is about $5 to $7 per kg, right? Whether it's soybean or pea or anything, right? All the other alternate proteins that we have today are much higher than that. So the challenge and the opportunity for all of us is to actually drop it below that, right? Because if you look at carbohydrates, right, less than $100 a kg. You pick up any other thing that sits in our plate, it's all less than 50 rupees, 60 rupees, 70 rupees. But then, you look at protein, it's really high. It just doesn't make sense, right? And as part of this revolution of alternate proteins, whether it is in terms of animal-free, or whether it's from a vegan perspective, whatever the motivation is for entrepreneurs or for end consumers, we strongly believe that cost per kg of protein needs to come down. It needs to come down to a $3, $2.5, $3 level very soon. And the lower that number comes down, the higher the demand is going to be. And the higher the demand is going to be, the larger the infrastructure that we'll need, right? And based on today's prediction of dropping alternate proteins in the human side to less than $10, the projections are at about 97 million tons in the next 15 years. So there's a lot of opportunity. So what would it take the ecosystem globally, and more so for us in India, to kind of be a big player in that space, right? If you put it as a pie and say, can we take a big chunk of this pie? This needs to come from companies like Laurus Bio, right? Is catering to the entire ecosystem. It needs to come from universities. It needs to come from people, resource, talent management, right? Because you're not automatically going to get hundreds and thousands of people to see. Because the challenge is, when you look at it from an infrastructure perspective, one is all the heavy capex that you need, right? That's a challenge by itself. We can talk about it at a later time, to raise that kind of money to build these facilities. And the second one is, who's going to operate these facilities, right? And on the resource side, and earlier I said I'll add a little bit more color on talent management here, is to echo what Krishnan said. Phenomenal way of what they did. Same thing what the IT industry did, whether it was the Infosys or the TCS. What did they do? They just went out into the industry, picked up every guy who did any kind of engineering, guy or girl, any kind of engineering, picked them up and trained them, right? To a point where I did mechanical engineering, right? Went into telecommunications. I'm in biotech today. So, and I think that's the kind of, I guess, kind of momentum we'll need to build very soon, very quickly. And organizations like GFI, working with companies like ourselves, working with the government of India, and which is happening in parallel, right? As part of our smart protein innovation white paper that we're putting together. We need to figure out how to quickly staff the pipeline that we'll need. Otherwise, we'll be caught, with all this infrastructure and no resources, or a lot of resources and infrastructure. So they need to go hand in hand. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think there is a tremendous opportunity. We've already done this for other industries in India. We can do this for the protein industries, and we can be the go-to manufacturing center for this for the globe, right? And I liked what Gabriela said earlier. In a different ways, technology is only worth so much on paper at the end of the day. Unless you take the technology, you manufacture the products, you give it to people or whoever is using it, and there's real impact then. Otherwise, technology is just nothing. It's just on paper. And today in the ecosystem, there's a lot of folks who are innovating, and rightly so. I think we very soon need to make that transition from innovation to manufacturing. And we need a lot more companies like Laurus Bio, like String Bio, and others to join and come into that evolution, saying, okay, let's get into this space, because we have that. We have the opportunities with labor in terms of cost arbitrage that most of the other countries cannot manufacture at the costs that we can manufacture from a labor perspective, right? If we can get any kind of good subsidies from the government for offsetting power, which is one of the largest requirements for the industry, we could go miles. We could replicate what China has done for high tech and beat them 10 times over. And I think that's the potential, and I'm very gung-ho about this. And for that, there is a lot of things that needs to happen from, companies like Gabriela manufacturing a lot more fermenters, right? You need fermenters, separation systems, piping, steel, people, and most importantly, money, funding and capex to make all of this happen. So a long way, a lot of things to go, but I think as a nation, we are poised to make this happen. And I'm just gung-ho about this whole goal effort going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Vinod. I think my next question was to Gabriela herself. So I think you put in a platform as to the amount of capex which goes, and the amount of talent required to build this moving forward in terms of millions of tons of production. So Gabriela, given your experience with both Indian as well as international biomanufacturing firms, could you let us know some of the major hurdles which are there, which prevents us from scaling this up basically and running it?
I want to highlight what Christian mentioned before. It's a very, very, very important topic now for this precision fermentation industry, that the regulation will be done as quickly as possible, because the cost driver in the pharma definitely is the regulation, the very, very high burden there is to carry, and then it's very, very capital intensive, the same what Rakesh mentioned. But I see a very, very good chance, if the regulation is done quickly, that there can be found solution, very smart solution for this precision fermentation sector, which cannot be applied to the pharma sector. But we have done a lot of experience in the last 50 years, and pharma is very, very risk averse. But we know why. But now in the precision fermentation, in this food sector, you have now the spirit and the move and the driver. We heard just the cost we need to achieve, $3 per kilogram, whatever. So we need to explore, we need to work together, and we need to find new solutions. We cannot go with the capital intensive equipment as we go to the pharma, because the margin are totally different at the end. So what Bioengineering is doing there, finding smart solutions. At the moment, if we are talking about the lab scale, we recommend still to have the very high level that you can explore and define the processes in a very good way. Because what I see now is it's not only a question of equipment, it's only about also about smart processes. The precision fermentation is tremendous and marvelous, but you have really to do basic research to have the good way to do it, that it is economical at the end for a large scale production. So it is good to invest a lot of time in this basic research on a pilot scale. I mean, 2,000 liter, whatever, that you have real good data to go in a very high level. Otherwise, if you have not such a good line or not such a good microorganism, it happens that the equipment will be, to achieve the parameters, too expensive. So this is always a challenge, back forth with the scientist, with the process developer, and the equipment builder. And actually, that's the same journey we have done with the pharma. But there, the level for the regulation is even more. We know that, but we expect from bioengineering that the regulation in precision fermentation, we don't know that exactly, but we expect that it is somewhere in between brewery and between pharma, somewhere in the middle there. It's definitely not brewery. For that, precision fermentation is too specific. But somewhere there it has to be. So we are now doing very well. We have an idea how we can optimize the equipment in this field and also go to large scale, because we know we all have to go to large scale. But I also want to mention and to highlight that we should think regional. I think the sustainability of the world showed us, and even the pandemic showed us, that we need not one production site in one city. No, we need this in all over the country. So also the equipment has to be smart, that you can roll out it very quickly in different areas, because that makes no sense to have all the logistic behind of it. It's not sustainable. It's not fast enough. So I would strongly recommend that there are also, from the engineering side, solution in the equipment which can be rolled out very quickly, not only in one country, also to the whole world. That's the idea behind our approach. I hope I answered somehow your question. Okay, Akshay.
Absolutely, Gabriela. I think I think in terms of what you said about having regional facilities is absolutely true, and you also put in a platform as to why bench scale research and taking it to, let's say, pilot scale, reiterating that to take it to large scale is so critical. And so my next question is to Taslim as to bring us back towards research and innovation. Taslim, most of the deep tech work is done in top-notch research institutes per se, but yet very, very few technologies find its way to commercial viability. So what do you feel, what needs to be done differently to improve the translational efficiency per se of institutional research? In other words, efficiency of how much actually is commercialized versus how much of research is actually done, especially in a new industry.
Well, thanks, Akshay. I can go on for an hour on this, but I'll not really trouble you with that. But nonetheless, certainly, how much ever you can say, there are definitely institutes which are, supported to build basic science understanding. They do build phenomenal discoveries. And then we see that they do not progress further post excellent outcome in terms of discovery, publication, or even patent. And many a times we see the valley in terms of scientific movement of good discovery to application. There's a valley of that before industry comes in. There are many ways one can continue to talk about. But very important thing that we possibly need is that an aspect of looking at how we can encourage scientists, including students working and postdocs and faculty working in the academia, to see how they are seeing those scientific discoveries going forward. That's a very important thing. The mindset that would allow them to then either do it themselves or reach out to industry or reach out to startups to build that forward. Because once you have a mindset, once you have a passion that no, this science demands, merits a further journey beyond publication and so on, then the avenues will add up. The second existence that we definitely do not have is early stage partnerships between industry and academia. I think that is something we need to do extensively, where the programs, the projects are built together as a large, and nobody sees that I think this is going to benefit or that is going to benefit. It's a joint initiative. Both are going to do the work, and whatever comes out, I think early stage programs have to be come in. more consortiums need to be built. And I think we do not have enough consortiums. Let's say, can we have a consortiums for, the smart protein capability? Do we have that? No, we don't have that. We do not have a consortium where 10 startups, 10 industry, 10 academic researchers sit together and build a larger program like that, which are built in Europe. So some of these areas, when we actually build programs together, when you actually have the movements of, sabbatical level movements between academia and industry, I think those allow us to translate this, because we are not talking about a project translation. We are actually trying to build the translational mindset, which is very, very important, which would have a long-term impact. And I think early things are happening. There are several funding agencies like from DBT BIRAC or the DST or AIM or state level. They are doing a really good job of putting it together, but we need to continue doing it. I think this will take time. It's not an overnight task, but I'm with you when you say that there are really amazing jewels of science sitting there. I think we need to go find them, polish them and take them to industry. I think there are many ways to do that. There is not a single way, but I think definitely it's worth a task. And as a community, we need to do it together.
Thanks, Taslim. I completely agree with you. I think bioincubators should serve as efficient middlemen, probably, to take science from academia into industry. Point well taken. So my next question is to Rajesh. With all this conversation we have had so far, it's pretty obvious that India could become a biomanufacturing hub, and specifically linking it to smart protein sector. But this would also mean that innovation across cutting edge technologies needs to be done to drive down costs, which has also been discussed. So what do you think, which areas of research and innovation do you believe that India is best suited to, from your experience?
Yeah, this is a very critical question and very close to my heart, because what is happening in the novel protein space today is they are much above. I think Vinod talked about this. They're much above the protein. Protein itself is a high-priced macronutrient today compared to carbohydrates. But the novel proteins, the alternative proteins, as of today, are much, much above that price. So they have to come down, actually come below that price to make it effective and add the sustainability quotient. So there are 2 or 3 things that India can do. We are working as we speak on this, because we work with a lot of these novel protein companies, and pretty much everybody is looking at, how do I compete with cows and chickens of the world? How do I make sure the fermenters that I put, it's a competition between our bioengineers and the cows and chickens of the world, basically. It's like a T20 game. Who wins and when do you win it? So what we have seen is a 2 or 3 step process to bring the cost down. One is, currently, if you look at our cost of producing a kg of novel protein, majority of the cost goes into the downstream process. When you say downstream process, is when you produce the protein at the upstream, and then you take it to the downstream one is to separate it out and then purify it. We are ending up, I think Gabriel talked about this, we are still using a lot of these equipments that are kind of fine-tuned for pharma industry. And pharma industry doesn't care about all these expensive items because their margins are so huge, they don't care. And they're risk averse, as Gabriel said. Now we are working with the same suppliers who supply some of these columns, chromatography columns, etc., to a pharma industry, and taking that to apply to food industry. And these vendors don't have any incentive, right now at least, to come up with new innovation or to bring down their margins. So I see Gabriel smiling here. So this is where the biggest cost of production is going today. And somebody has to come in to disrupt this market first. How do we disrupt this downstream market, focusing on the food industry? Now, once we do that, and we are doing it currently, we are trying to eliminate certain processes and change. For example, can we replace chromatography process with solvent extraction, for example? So we are doing a lot of those innovation at the downstream level. And then what will happen is, of course, the scale will help to bring down the cost. But the problem with the scale is you will hit the road, you will hit the wall someday. I mean, you can't keep on building a large scale fermenter and expect the cost going down linearly. It won't. So the second step that will happen once we fine tune these downstream process is the ratio of your raw material cost versus OPEX cost. The ratio kind of becomes a little bit different at that time once you bring down your downstream cost. So the most innovation that has to happen today is at the raw material cost, the cost of carbon source. If we can, ideally we have to bring it down to zero. I will say even if we may have to go negative, we may have to take the waste. Somebody will pay you to take the waste material from the food processing industry or some of other industries and take that carbon source to use to make protein. So these are some of the areas where we, as companies like us and other companies in this environment, in this ecosystem, should start working on. Because I see that it's a 2 or 3 step process. One is cut down your downstream cost. Suddenly your upstream cost looks bigger. And then you need to go back and say, how do I, currently, if you look at the raw material cost is around 30% of the total OPEX, total cost of production. And as you bring down the downstream cost, the raw material cost almost goes up to 60 to 70%. So we need to start thinking about this.
Absolutely. Thanks for that perspective, Rajesh. So Krishnan, if you can quickly give an industrial perspective to this, it'd be really great.
Yeah, well, I heard a lot. I mean, very good informative from Vinod to Taslim to Rajesh now. One part which I would like to say from our own experience, especially when they spoke about the cost factor, one is continuous innovation is very, very critical. I'll tell you from an enzyme point of view, those days, I would say it took 10 years before an enzyme was discovered. So the price initially started with some of the enzymes. For example, for a beer segment, we sold at $75 per kilo. And today the same enzyme is about $6. So there are two aspects to this. It is continuous innovation, finding the right micro, making sure that the overall process, and even Rajesh spoke about the process. We have to look at optimization there, and a lot of these challenges are there. Today, what is happening with this segment is they discover something and they want to immediately go to the marketplace. And they are in a great hurry. They have not thought about the process for producing. They have not thought about what do we do more from an innovation point of view. That is why the costs are going up. That's my perspective, and we have personally experienced this. Enzymes have become very, very cheap. I'll tell you, when we brought enzyme way back in the early 80s, for every dollar of enzyme we brought into India, the government of India put 175% duty. And today, of course, they have to go through the commitment with WTO, and it is about 10%. But then they have so many other cess and GST and everything. Again, it comes back to 30-40%. But then it is critically important that they look at all these aspects from an Indian context. And we have, I think, innovative ideas coming up. They should look beyond what they discovered and then look at optimization. That's what I would say from that point of view. Your point of view about the collaboration with research, I think Taslim made a very good point. It is critically important. Industry academia collaboration is on the increase. There are some challenges between academia and industry, especially multinational companies. Today, there are some challenges from a patent perspective. There are certain challenges. For example, if there is a project which DBT would like us to do, as a multinationals, you're not allowed because it's the taxpayers' money. So these are some of the things we have even gone ahead and offered, don't pay us, but then they said you need a local collaborator. So some of these small challenges are always there between industry and academia collaboration. But I think slowly these things will probably be rectified. Having said that, we should be proud about what happened, especially in the manufacture of Covaxin between Bharat Biotech and the National Institute of Virology. It's a collaborative effort and we succeeded. Same with Zydus Cadila also. So definitely there is a possibility. It is a question of probably finding out what are the challenges, why industry is very hesitant to collaborate with academia in some cases, especially wherever there is a lot of innovation and research happening. The question is whose patent it is. So there are some challenges. Of course, Taslim will have a lot of answers for this. He's aware of it. But then these are some of the things I would say. But definitely things are improving, and probably we would see more of industry academia collaboration.
Thank you, Krishnan. Thanks for throwing light on that. And absolutely, COVID-19 has already set an example as to why it's so important, and probably it should be also a precedence as to why it's important to collaborate. Industry needs to collaborate with academia. So now I would like to hand over this session to Nicole Roque, our innovation specialist, who will ask a few more questions to our panelists. Thank you.
Thanks, Akshay. That's honestly been a great session so far. And we've covered a lot during the last hour and 10 minutes. So I just want to close off by asking everyone one question, really focused on how we're going to move into this mass market. Taslim, I'd like to start with you. Since NCBS and CCAMP has a lot of international collaborators, you do a lot of this cross-continental ecosystem work, there's potential to work similarly within the smart protein sector as well. How can we leverage the strengths that we have, that we've spoken about, to accelerate growth within this sector globally, as well as what kinds of partnerships within research do we need to be looking at in this area to really help us get from bench to billions and reach that mass market that we're talking about?
Thanks, Nicole. I have a kind of I completely agree with you that there is a huge potential in front of us, and I'll reply very quickly. But I think for us to achieve that, what we need to do is do a very quick but a very strategic movement in. And for me, that strategic movement would be very clear. Identify key stakeholders, put them together in terms of with a clear vision and a roadmap in terms of what we want to achieve together and a very clear deliverables on that. For me, this would be looking at different aspects of research, infrastructure, objectives, and then connect with where we can leverage the international and national capabilities which are there across stakeholders. I would say that I with the vast amount of talent, vast amount of infrastructure, and last 10 years of amazing work that has happened in bio, I think we are right in the right time to actually now leverage it further. But it would require a little bit strategic guided movement, and that is something going to be key according to me. There has to be a kind of a lead, which something like GFI and taking is right now, to actually put it and converge it together. And I think it's on the right path. We just have to build it together.
Thank you for that. And that's really what we're trying to build here with events like these and with partnerships like these, and having people across the value chain like we have had with all of you on this panel, really speaking to building out those partnerships and forging those partnerships, because really the opportunity is to reach that mass market. This is not an academic project. We really do need to reach that mass market. Next, I think I want to move to you, Gabriela, since we're talking about international partnerships. Right now, industry and government are not yet prioritizing alternative proteins in India specifically, but in their counterparts in other countries, they're beginning to wake up to this opportunity. So I really want to ask you what you would want to say to these stakeholders in India to really inspire them to get involved.
Okay, I think we covered a lot of topics, as you mentioned, and for the government, I don't see that they should invest. That's my personal opinion. I think the government is should really make the surrounding happen. I mean, regulation, infrastructure, land, all those kind of things. They shouldn't be a company and producing. That's not the question I would ask them. But to see the tremendous opportunity they are there now, and I mentioned, and that I hope I pointed it out enough, India has huge capabilities, know-how, personnel. Even if you are complaining compared to Switzerland, it's nothing what you have. And I mean, we have much bigger problem in this sector, and that's exactly what your strength is. You have the capability, you know how to ferment, you have the companies like Laureus Bio, you have all those capabilities. Of course, you can expand, it's easy. But what I always heard from India, from my clients, and in the bio sector, infrastructure, land, and all those kind of thing, regulations. So I would strongly recommend the government go ahead, make it happen, and make your people bloom and make the companies bloom, because it's there, but make it happen. And don't think you should be entrepreneurs or something like that, but you should make a surrounding where everything can flourish. That's my most important message. And why to jump in this field? I mean, this is the major field for the next few years, because the environment needs that. We need some other ideas, that we have some other ideas, that we have other ideas about food. And I think there is a potential for the future. Biotech is, of course, a potential still and will be, but we need also to cover this sector. It will be a tremendous lack of protein in the next few years. And however we will cover, we need to have innovative ideas. So for the government, is always a way to go this road, always.
Thank you so much for describing the urgency, really, of the task ahead of us. And with that, Rajesh, I want to come back to you. We think India can be one of the first countries in the world to not only move smart protein into the mass market, but also it continues to improve in terms of other dimensions related to sustainability, related to nutrition. Is this an achievable goal? How far are we from the bench all the way to billions and billions of people?
Well, as a country, yes, we are far. I think that it requires a lot of work. What can we do as a company that we have built some expertise in this area for the larger ecosystem in India? If you look at it, I will give you a case study, which is a company who had basically R&D level product that they had. This is not from India, but outside India. And all they did, all they had was a stream. And they came to us, and we, with our infrastructure that we have in the R&D, we are a very R&D heavy company. So we help them to scale to a certain level, take them to pilot scale, and then now to the commercial scale. They actually went back and raised their Series B of close to more than $100 million. Now, I'm talking about this case study because this is what we can do in India. We have a lot of startups. We talk about startups, but we don't talk about the next step for the startups. The startups, the biggest challenge for them is they have a product that they think it can work, both technically and commercially, but there is no way for them to invest millions of dollars to set up their R&D facility or even do some pilot scale development to be able to go to the next step. So what people call, the valley of death. So this is where we can help as a company. We can, support some of these new startups that are working on the fermentation-based proteins, that we can come in and take them to the next step so that they can, escape that valley of death and go from pre-series to Series A or Series B. That's where the biggest gap is in India. If you look at, there are a lot of startups and there's a lot of big companies, and then there's a huge gap, both in terms of capital and also in terms of the other capabilities. So if we can do that in India, we are glad to do that.
That's really a great point that you've made. And I feel like you've summed up what everyone's been saying through this panel so well as well. It's really, really about identifying what those strategic advantages are and how we can come together as an ecosystem to really push this sector forward. With that, Vinod, your final thoughts from you. Unless all stakeholders, really get together and work with this mission focus that we've been talking about and we've brought up multiple times during this session, we may see the best talent continue to leave to more mature ecosystems. We may not see capital come into the ecosystems. We may never see, products end up in markets. How are you as a company balancing some of these needs? What more work do we need to do to make sure this is all made into a reality? And how can companies like yourselves really address the demand for, really address the potential for a sector like this to address both malnutrition as well as resource constraints, but that we are going to be facing in the near future? Final rounding out thoughts from you, and then we'll move to Krishna.
Sure, thanks. That's a long question, Nicole. So I will start with the first piece of talent leaving India, right? We have seen the whole, brain drain, as they call it, right? We've been talking about that for several years in other industries, and there's a lot of reverse brain drain happening. But in this particular sector, I actually personally don't believe we're going to lose talent out of India, right? Because I think this is one such industry that can actually, awaken the passion of people. If you really motivate the folks of what the potential of this industry is and what this industry can do for the ecosystem, I think that's where, and if you look at, from a talent management perspective of the whole Gen X through the millennials, I strongly believe that we will not lose talent to other countries from a workforce perspective, right? I think that's not going to be as big a challenge in terms of how it used to be in the past. In terms of, so that's my thought on the talent side of it. In terms of what we could do together to grow this industry, I think funding is one thing I would definitely like to highlight. Rajesh briefly touched on it. I think the government of India or a lot of centers like, and folks like Dr. Tasleem and other folks in the ecosystem have done a tremendous job to get companies from ideation to a certain stage, right? We have a very strong ecosystem in India actually today, well supported by the government to kind of get you past that stage. And even now in the last few years, 3-4 years, we're also seeing a lot of venture capitalists showing interest in the space at a very early stage, putting in $1 million or $2 million. But the biggest gap that we have is in that second stage to take the company from that point to, okay, let's commercialize this, or let's get the product, let's build the business. The risk profile for the biotech industry is very different compared to the other industries, right? And we don't have enough investors who can internalize that kind of risk appetite. So what I think one of the biggest things that we can do to take it from bench to billions is to build this part of the ecosystem in India, right? Is to build that gap that is there in mid to later stage technology development companies, and that cannot come from government, right? I don't think that should come from the government, as Gabriela said. That has to come from the private markets, because I think there is a lot of merit in capitalism. This is not a social cause, and I think in fact capitalism drives innovation, right? It drives, and we've seen this across the board, and I strongly believe in that. And innovation needs to happen not just at a bench level or at a pilot level, and even in production, there's a lot of small little things that can derail you. Krishnan talked about it, Rajesh talked about it, and there's a lot of innovation that needs to happen in the second stage of the technology development to get the product to market. It's not just a POC or having a strain. So I think for that, a lot of funding is required, and I think there's a lot of work that we need to do to get our existing financial ecosystems integrated with the financial ecosystems of the West, and get them to see the capabilities we have and bring them more here and get them to understand this. I think, but if we do that, I think we will be poised for success. I think all the other elements to build this industry is here. We have it in India. I think that's the biggest gap that I would like to highlight. hopefully I addressed all the pieces of the question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much, and apologies about that. But really wanted to get in your closing thoughts.
Yeah.
Finally, Krishnan, I think really just drawing on your experience in building out, other pieces of the biotech ecosystem in India. Could you, for us, put your predictive hat on and let us know where you believe we will be in 2030 in terms of industry development? What is
Thank you,
possible?
Nicole. Thank you very much. I would call it Vision 2030 for the biotech industry. We visualize India's bioeconomy to be at least 200 billion and contributing more than 4% to the GDP. We foresee at least half a dozen made in India products in the biopharma, vaccine, alternate foods, diagnostic sector being widely available in many advanced countries in the world. We expect 5 to 6 biotech unicorns joining the list of India's unicorn pantheon. Could be String and could be our Laurus, could be so many others, could be one among them. Above all, biotechnology industry and its contribution to heal the world, feed the world, and fuel the world will be highly recognized around 2030. With this, I would like to conclude. Wishing you all a lovely 2022 without COVID.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your partnership in building out this sector. It would not really be possible without you all, and we thank you for being champions for this sector, and thank you for being part of this session this afternoon as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Akshay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.